Tennessee football has gotten so much better throughout the tenure of Josh Heupel. Yeah, I know I'm not breaking any news here, despite the 8-4 regular season record last year. But where exactly has Tennessee grown, not just on offense, but on defense as well? We're going to revisit some stats from the Josh Heupel era. All that and more here on a Friday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. I am Eric Kay, and happy to have you guys here making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. A part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day. Thank you so much for being here, you everydayers. Let's finish the week out strong, right? Let's get us set for Tennessee and Evansville and Super Regional play coming up later this afternoon. 3 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN2. We'll get your scout for Tennessee versus Evansville in segment 3. We'll talk with the voice of the Tennessee baseball team on this journey to hopefully Omaha, John Wilkerson, in segment number 2. And then, of course, we're going to dive down into some stats here from Josh Heupel at Tennessee in segment number 1. That is today's show. You can watch us, listen to us, subscribe to us, download us, all that for free, completely free wherever you get your podcasts. And I encourage you to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, whether that be Spotify, Apple, wherever. And of course, subscribe on the YouTube channel. It just helps the show grow and get us in front of more and more Tennessee fans. Okay, so I wanted to talk football, obviously. Got to talk football every single show. And I was really just kind of grasping at some straws here on a Friday because, yeah, there's some news, sponsored logos on fields and yada, yada, yada. Who cares? Like, that's boring, right? And so I dug down and deep into some stats over the Josh Heupel era. And sure, we talk about this at the end of every football season, but I wanted to kind of revisit some things. In terms of touchdown, this is one stat that I found pretty interesting. In terms of touchdowns in conference games as a head coach, this being Josh Heupel at UCF and, of course, Josh Heupel at Tennessee, going back to 2018 when it was his first year. He had 44 touchdowns in conference play at UCF in 2018. He had 43 in 2019. He had 45 in 2020. So he scored on average an average of 44 touchdowns in conference games during his UCF tenure. At Tennessee in 2021, he scored 36 conference touchdowns in the SEC. In 2023, he scored, 2021 it was 36, 2022 it was 45, and then last year in 2023 it was 16. 16. Which is not great. 16, of course, that is a big dip. That is a big dip. Just a huge dip in productions in terms of the offensive touchdowns in conference games from one year to the next. So, sure, that's not really improvement. But I do think that with a better quarterback, I do think that with playmakers on the outside, I do think that with a capable offensive line and a running back you feel good in, you need to create some depth, don't get me wrong, you're going to be back up towards that 30-ish plateau. But there were a lot of games where Tennessee settled for field goals, on the road in conference play. Think about games in Alabama where it didn't do anything in the second half. Had that first touchdown, which was great, but didn't do a whole lot more, especially in the second half. Think of games at Missouri where you scored one touchdown and that was it. Not a very good showing, right? And then you had some games, of course, against Kentucky where you scored a lot, and in games against, Florida where you didn't score nearly enough. You only scored 16 touchdowns. So when you look at the total, 16 points, when you look at the total amount of touchdowns in conference play in 2023, it's honestly not that shocking. But then you think about a year in 2022 where you just pummeled Florida, scoring in the 30s, You put 49 on Alabama. You put what? You put a ton. You put a ton on Missouri, just as you did the year before in 2021, so on and so forth. So that's something that needs to be better, obviously, in 2024. And I wholeheartedly feel like I would wager a significant portion. I'm not, but I could wager a significant portion that they'll have more than 16 touchdowns in SEC play this year. So that's kind of disheartening. That's one of the stats that I wanted to bring to the table, but it's not really shocking. The offense changed a little bit. Joe Milton, it wasn't all his fault, but Joe Milton was not Hendon Hooker. Joe Milton is not going to be Nico Iamaleava. Tennessee's wide receivers were Mel Keaton, didn't have a great year. Dante Thornton didn't have a great year. Brew McCoy got hurt. I mean, there were some factors in there, don't get me wrong, but overall, that is not a very good sight. So, you look at something on defense, though, that I think is a pretty good statistic that I wanted to bring, and this is more or less what the conversation that I wanted to bring. In 2021, Tennessee's defense under Tim Banks, not very good. It was 90th in scoring, allowing 29.1 points per game. It was 59th in rushing, allowing 148.5 yards per game. It was 122nd in passing, allowing 273 yards per game. It was the 99th overall ranked defense in Division I, allowing 421.7 yards per game. Those are not good stats. But steadily improvement each and every single year has Tennessee in a pretty good spot here in 2024. What did Tennessee do in 2022? How much better was Tennessee's defense in 22 compared to 21? Well, scoring jumped up significantly. You went from 90th in the country to 35th in the country, allowing only 22.8 points per game. Okay. Rushing went up significantly. You were the 20th best rush defense in the country in 2022, allowing only 115 yards per game. That is really good. That is really good. Passing still wasn't great. In fact, you were actually worse in pass defense in 2022 than you were in 2021. In 21, you allowed 273 yards through the air. That was 122nd. In 2022, you allowed 289 yards through the air. That was 126. However, I will say, not making excuses, but how many games were Tennessee up by a long shot, right? That was Tennessee's great year, okay? Offensively was fantastic. Jaden Daniels and LSU, he just threw and threw and threw and threw and threw all game long because they were down 14-0 before they got off the bus. So I think that should be taken into account a little bit. But overall, you don't want to backslide in terms of stats. So that was a little disappointing. However, you were still better by 9 spots in total defense in 2022 than you were in 2021. You were 99th in 2021. In 2022, you were 90th, allowing 405 yards per game. So sure, there was some improvement, and we're not getting into the specifics of third downs and red zone and all that because red zone was not very good. That actually got better in 2023. But those are just some key stats. Now, 2023, you took ginormous step forward, okay? Scoring. You actually went back, but you scored. It's funny, whenever you're nitpicking here, whenever you're kind of close to where you were the year before. Scoring-wise, in terms of your ranking in the country, you actually went back 3 spots from 35th to 38th, but you allowed fewer points. In 2022, you allowed 22.8 points per game. In 2023, you allowed 22 points per game even. So it was still improvement there, you know what I'm saying? Rushing, same thing. So you got better in terms of yards allowed per game. You went from 115 given up on the ground to 113, but you went from 20th in the nation the year before to 23rd in rush defense. But there was still improvement there, you know what I'm saying? But those are minuscule. Here's a big one, passing. Significant jump in pass defense. In 2022, you ranked 126th in the nation to 289 yards through the air. That's what you gave up. In 23, this past fall, you ranked 79th in the nation at allowing 234 yards through the air. That is a huge jump that nobody is wanting to talk about. And significantly, you jumped up. You were a top 40 defense last year. Everybody wants to blame Tim Banks. Everybody says, oh, well, Tim Banks doesn't screw this up or screw this up. Stats don't lie. Tennessee's defense was significantly better last year. In every area, red zone as well, third downs, scoring, rushing defense, passing defense, total defense. You were the 39th ranked defense in the country at allowing only 348 yards a game. That is really good. Is there room for improvement? Absolutely. I think Tennessee can get better this year, but that's really, really good. So my point is, where do we project Tennessee's defense to be in 2024? Well, with one of the best defensive line in the country, I think that you're going to be up there and you're going to be, once again, one of the better rush defenses in the nation. I think that overall you should once again be in the top 40, probably taking a few steps up. Scoring, I think, is going to be better because you've improved on third down and you've improved on red zone. Pass defense, big question mark, okay? Because, again, it's brand new. You lost every starter from there last year. However, if you have a good front line, a deep and experienced front line that can get after the quarterback led by James Pearce Jr., that's only going to help your pass defense. So I'm intrigued to see what this defense can do in 2024, but you look at these stats, Tim Banks has gotten better and better and better. His defenses and his secondary in 2023, significant improvement. Still can be a whole lot better. I'm not trying to say it can't be. Still can be so much better. But these defenses have gotten better and better every single year under Tim Banks. So I just think that's something interesting to remember when we're deep into offseason conversation. When we come back, John Wilkerson's going to get us set for Tennessee against Evansville in Super Regional play. As we continue on here with a Friday edition of Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. It's going to be fun. We got a lot more to get into. Passion, drive, patience, the formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performances. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money is back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Here with the voice of the Tennessee baseball team, that is the one and only John Wilkerson. John, appreciate the time, man. How you doing?
Doing well, Eric. How are you?
Doing really, really well. It's a fun, exciting time for Tennessee baseball. Of course, getting ready for a big-time weekend, the fourth consecutive Super Regional for Tennessee baseball, the third at home, and sixth time in program history. We'll see if Tennessee can punch its ticket to Omaha for the third time in 4 years. Your thoughts overall about this weekend, just this team and you know what they've accomplished so far?
Well, really appreciate what this team has been able to accomplish, because I think there are differences. Even though they have more home runs than the 2022 team, I just think this team has a determination that is unique to itself. That's not that the other teams haven't been. I just think that it is really prevalent with this team. And I think you saw that. You look how many times, I think it was 5 times that SEC series came down to game 3, and there was only once they came up short. And so I think this is a squad that has shown so many different ways that they know how to go out and go get a win. Sometimes it's offense that carries the day. Sometimes it's pitching that will shut down the other side. And they've been so solid and consistent defensively. I just really appreciate this team across the board, because, again, they just have a desire to win that is a pretty good characteristic to have, especially this stage of the season.
Yeah, so in saying that, would you say that this team handles pressure really well? Because anytime you're the number one overall seed, you're going to have a ton of pressure. Here lately, anytime you're Tennessee, you're going to have a ton of pressure because of what this team's accomplished over the past couple of years. And I think more so than anything, you know, Evansville is playing with house money. You know, it's America is rooting for Evansville. But, you know, what this 2022 team, you know, accomplished and kind of how they went about it, it kind of puts pressure on this team a little bit. But in kind of hearing what you're saying there, and in my opinion, feels like this team doesn't bat an eye. Like, it's fine with that type of pressure.
I think there's an expectation that something's going to happen. But I also think at the same time, nobody's waiting for somebody specifically to do it. I think they all think they're capable, and I think we've seen that in terms of how many different people have had a hand in some of Tennessee's wins, especially when you look at down the stretch over the second half of the season, because, you know, they have 14 games left in the regular season, and they are 5 games behind Kentucky. And so they were able to kind of flip that script and be able to get a share, win the SEC, win the Eastern Division, and go into the SEC tournament as the 1 seed. This is a team that knows what it's like not to have wiggle room, and they, again, just have this knack for making it happen.
John, how silly is it that you're the number 1 overall seed, you're the higher seed, yet playing at your own ballpark in the postseason, sometimes you're the visiting team? How silly is that?
It really is. And at the same time, not only that, you were the 1 seed at the SEC tournament. And yet, as they completed the regional in Knoxville against Southern Miss, they had been the road team 5 of the last 6 games. Their last 3 games in Hoover, they hit first. Their last 2 games in Knoxville, they hit first. To Tennessee's credit, they're 5-0 in those games. So, hey, why not make them the road team again?
When you look at this Evansville club and doing some of your research and preparing for this weekend, what stands out to you about Evansville? I mean, for me, it looks like it's a team that can hit. Obviously, it's a team that, has its back against the wall and finds a way. It had it a couple of times there on that Monday and Sunday contest in the Greenville Regional, but I'm really impressed with the bats, and of course, they've got a really nice freshman that Tennessee's going to see on Friday that can carve them up a little bit.
Yeah, you got a group of guys that just want to keep playing, and that's what they did. They went out and got the first one they had to have, won that one 4-1 against East Carolina. Then they win a shootout, 17-11 against Virginia Commonwealth to stay in the winners bracket. Then they got thumped pretty good, lost 19-6 to East Carolina in the rematch. And so everybody's thinking, okay, their goose is cooked, but yet they go out, they keep it within 3. Furthest they were down in that game 7 was 5-2, and then it was 5-3, and then a 3-run home run flips the script. They give it to the bullpen. East Carolina had 2 runners with 2 out in the 8th. That's the only men they got on after the top of the 5th inning. So just really appreciate what they were able to do to just seize the opportunity in front of them. And I mean, their goal all along was to make the NCAA tournament. As a program, they hadn't done it since 2006. And so this group of seniors got to realize their dream. And now they're thinking and playing with the exact attitude. Our season is already a success. Everything else now is just the cherry on top. And oh, by the way, we're 2 wins away from Omaha. So I just think this is a team that's got I think they're a determined team. But at the same time, I think they realize that, they're going to play as hard as they can until somebody tells them to stop.
Different circumstances, different situations. I don't want to say it's exactly the same, but kind of like that feel for Tennessee in 2021, right? Like you just kept winning. You win your division, you win your conference, you get past regionals, you get past supers. It's like, okay, well, I mean, we want to keep winning. Don't get me wrong, but man, what a season this has been. Nobody envisioned it being like this, right?
Well, I think that's a great point. I do think that they were in a little bit better standing in 21 than Evansville was, but yeah. Sure. I mean, that was one of the things where you do everything you're supposed to just to give yourself the chance to win. And so they kept getting rewarded for their effort. And that wound up being a host for the first time ever in a super regional setting. They took care of LSU in fine fashion. And then they got back to the College World Series. And then that set the table, I think, for how good they were the next year when everybody had another year of experience under their belt. Then they had to deal with the disappointment of not getting the job done and not being able to advance from Knoxville to Omaha. And to think that there are guys that have been here that were a part of that 21 team, that were a part of the disappointment and frustration in 22, and then last year able to shake off the slow start of 5-10 in SEC play to get back and be the first team ever to go 2 out of 3 years for the University of Tennessee. I just think you've got a lot of experiences, shared experience, as well as individual accomplishments and growth that all, again, make this a very difficult team to deal with.
John, I've been asked this all week long, and I don't really know how to answer it because the simple thing is if Tennessee goes out and does what Tennessee does, Tennessee should have no issue whatsoever. So let me put it to you. For Tennessee to advance on to the College World Series, for Tennessee to deposit of Evansville in this great story this weekend, what does Tennessee have to do?
Yeah, I think it's just make sure that do what you've been doing because they haven't been a team that was worried about what happened the day before. They haven't been concerned with what might happen or not happen the next day. So I just think keep doing what you're doing. Make sure that you don't give away any at bats. Make sure that you're out there and you're ready for the next ball that comes your way and just be ready to get the next strike. I just think that if Tennessee puts one foot in front of the other, they're going to be okay. I do think these games are going to be competitive, but I also think we might see it like we saw this past weekend, where in the end, Tennessee's going to have the opportunity to separate itself from Evansville, just as it did against Northern Kentucky, Indiana, and Southern Miss.
John, remind me here. I know you've been with the Vol Radio Network for quite some time. You've been doing Tennessee baseball specifically for a long time. Was it 93, 94 when you began with Tennessee baseball?
Actually, my first season was 91. It was Rod Delmonico's second season. So I then was able to work with Mike Keith while he was the voice of the Vols in terms of Tennessee baseball. And then when Mike became the voice of the Titans, that's when I slid over. So this is actually my 34th year with the program.
So you've seen some good years. You've been to Omaha a couple times. You've seen some SEC championships and some great players that have come through here. But I don't want to speak for you, John, but it feels like this last 4 or 5 years, it's just been the best, right? I mean, it's been so much fun, so much winning, so many great players, and just the consistency in where you're playing right now. It feels like It's all been a blessing and all been fun, but this last, little bit under Tony Vitello has just been incredible for you specifically, right?
Well, it's unprecedented for Tennessee to be going to a fourth straight Super Regional. I think while you did see Todd Helton and company win back-to-back SEC championships in 94 and 95, I mean, this is 4 straight years. You had that wave of success for Tennessee baseball. Then it was Chris Burke and his teammates that went in 2001. It was Chase Headley and Luke Hochaver that went back in 2005. So there were more peaks and valleys in terms of that stretch with Rod Delmonico, who I think did a magnificent job. But again, sometimes it would just be ramping up to make another run at it. Tony Vitello and his staff have done such a great job in sustained success. You've played for the SEC tournament championship 3 of the last 4 years. You've won it 2 of the last 3 to win the conference again in the regular season, 2 of the last 3. Again, this is stuff that Tennessee had only done once before, and before that had never done it. So I really do think it is remarkable, and it is a testament to what the staff has been able to do. Chris Burke, when I caught up with him while the team was down in Gainesville, he made the really good point. He said Tennessee fans need to make sure they appreciate what they're seeing one year to the next, because it is not easy to sustain what Tennessee's doing. And so right now the Volunteers have themselves right in the thick of exactly where, as a fan, you want them to be.
Well, here's the hoping. There's at least, well, there can't be any more, but there's 2 Hello Win columns this weekend, and Tennessee's on to Omaha for the College World Series. And of course, if you're not at the game, if you're not watching on television, or if you're watching on television, I encourage you, mute the broadcast, turn on the Vol Radio Network. There's not a better listen in all of college sports than John Wilkerson, in my opinion. John, as always, man, thanks so much, and really looking forward to this weekend.
You are too kind, Eric. I sure do appreciate it. Thank you so much for the invitation.
All right, welcome back into your Friday edition of Locked On Vols. Great stuff there from John Wilkerson, right? I mean, a freaking legend coming on our show, and really, really do appreciate John, his time and his friendship. He's really, really good dude. Everything you think of John, so many times, whenever I meet people, they're like, "Man, John Wilkerson, man, he really is as nice as he sounds on the radio." Yeah, he's one of the few. One of the few people will meet me and be like, "Oh, yeah, you're nothing like I thought you'd be." I'm like, "Yeah, it's kind of a letdown, right?" But no, John Wilkerson is the man, that is for sure. Let's get you set for Tennessee and Evansville. Learned a little bit from John there. Of course, we talked with Jevin Redmond, the voice of Evansville, on yesterday's show. But let's kind of get into the nooks and cranny here. Let's kind of get into the scouts of who the Evansville Purple Aces are. Well, first NCAA tournament appearance since 2006, 4th time ever as a Division I program, coming off a Missouri Valley Conference tournament championship win that punched their ticket to the NCAA tournaments. And that's after they finished the Missouri Valley Conference with the tied for the second best record, I think like 3 games behind Indiana State. Of course, the Sycamores that, Tennessee's played in recent memory and was originally kind of projected to go to last year before it wound up in Clemson. But nonetheless, that 38 wins is tied for the 6th most ever in the program. So it's a really, really good season for the Purple Aces, no doubt. The 17 conference wins, I think, were the most since 2014 or something. My point is they're having a really, really good year. And as Jevin told us on yesterday's show, they're upperclassmen. They've got like 11 seniors, half of which are 5th year, half of which are true seniors that got really, really close to winning it all, the tournament, their conference tournament last year to punch their ticket. Last year came up just short in that if necessary game, and all decided to come back and kind of say, hey, this is our last ride. Let's go do it. And that's kind of where they are this year. Playing with house money, knowing that it's been such a great season regardless. Punching their ticket, only the 9th number 4 seed ever to go to Super Regional play. So they already know that it's been a great season, but want to continue to chip away and win some games and go to Omaha. But of course, standing in the way is the daunted number 1 overall seeded Tennessee Volunteers, which in my opinion, if you play your game, Tennessee should have no issue. But I've said it all week and I'll continue to say it. You don't get here for no reason. I mean, talent, it's not like you get here on accident. There's talent here on Evansville's club. And let me tell you all about this talent so far. We'll start on the mound. The guy that Tennessee's going to square off against later today, Kenton Deverman. He is a true freshman, all right? Been phenomenal for the Purple Aces this year. 9-1's the record, 17 appearances, 15 starts, an ERA of 3.81. Team high 106 innings and a third. He struck out 81, walked 20. He's been phenomenal. He's not a high velo guy. Crafty from the left side, breaking ball, relies on that. Velo's upper 80s to 90. Not a high velo guy, and Tennessee struggles with that kind of lefty. The guy that Tennessee will see on Saturday is Donovan Schultz. 6-2 is the record, 5.84 ERA. He's made every single start this year, 16 starts in 16 weeks. 72 batters is what he struck out. He has walked 32, and he's given up 42 extra base hits, 27 doubles, 15 homers. So opportunity there to put the ball in play for extra bases against Donovan Schultz. Opponents are hitting 273 against him. Those will be their two starters. Another guy that's kind of the swing guy, arguably one of the better pitchers on the roster, probably the second best pitcher behind Kenton Deverman, in my opinion, is a bullpen ace, redshirt senior righty, Shane Harris. 8-6 the record, 3.63 ERA. He's the swing man, can start. He started a couple games this year, 6 starts, 25 appearances. He's logged 72 innings overall in the year. Kind of like Nate Snead, he's going to be the guy that he could start game 3 if needed, but he's going to come in at some point in games 1 or 2 and lock things down, at least try for the Purple Aces, because he's kind of that Nate Snead, but also the versatility looking like an AJ Causey that can pitch long relief and could even start. So Shane Harris is a really, really good arm for the Purple Aces. Jacob Myers, the closer, leads the team with 27 appearances, 5 saves, but that ERA is at 6.13. Nick Smith's another guy that used to be an all-Missouri Valley Conference pitcher. He's been hurt, had some surgeries, as Jevin Redmond said on yesterday's show, just not really the same guy, but he is a guy that's got experience and a guy that started that Monday game that got them off, through 4 innings and ultimately, beat them, had them beat Eastern Carolina. It wasn't like he was fantastic in that game, but he stepped up is my point. But those numbers, 2-5, 12.90 ERA on the year is not good. So the team ERA sits at like 5.95, not great, but boy, Keaton Deverman is a really good player, and Tennessee's going to see him later this afternoon. The bats are impressive, in my opinion. You got a team that sits somewhere around a 300 batting average, led by all MVC outfielder Mark Schellenberger. Knock on the door of a 400 hitter here. 390 is the average, 17 home runs, 63 RBI. Really good player. Really good player. And he hit that 3-run home run on Monday that put the Aces up for good. Kip Forgarosi. I know I butchered his name, but that's what I'm going with until I hear the PA this weekend. Honorable mention all conference. He's a DH. 350 is the average. Team highs in home runs at 21 and 66 with RBI. The Missouri Valley Conference Tournament most outstanding player was second baseman Cal McGinnis. Third on the squad with a 337 batting average. He plays second base. Harrison Tobert is at 301, has 9 homers, 49 ribbies. Leadoff man and shortstop Simon Sherry is sitting just under 300 at 297 with the average, but is tied for the team lead with 16 stolen bases with fellow teammate and outfielder Ty Rumsey. Those are the highlights of the order. They're resilient. So many times you thought last weekend when watching them on Sunday and Monday that they were just toast. Or as John said in the previous segment, the goose was cooked. But they just kept battling back. I was super impressed with the urgency, with the resiliency. That's though they're not experienced this far into the tournament, it shows signs of veteran and a good culture and experience in terms of just having older guys, and that's what Evansville is. Evansville tried their hand against 3 SEC teams this year. Vanderbilt beat them 7-3 back in February. Mississippi State swept them at home in early March, and Kentucky beat them on March the 19th. None of those games were even close, with the exception of Game 1 in Starkville, where Mississippi State won 5-2. The rest were pretty one-sided. I mean, there was a Vanderbilt beat them 7-3. That's not horrendous. Game 2 in Starkville was 8-3, but Kentucky beat them 11-3. Mississippi State in Game 3 beat them 13-3. Wasn't really even close. But Evansville, again, they come into the offensively, they have school records in doubles. They're actually number 2 in the country in doubles. They have school records in runs scored and home runs with 92. It's a team that can hit a little bit, but again, if Tennessee just does what Tennessee does, should be no issue in my opinion. Play like the number 1 team in the country. Play your game, and you'll be back to Omaha for the third time in 4 seasons. So I'm excited to see what happens this weekend. Again, on paper, it looks great. We talked about this earlier in the week. I mean, it's the path you want, but games are not won on paper. You got to go out there and do it. And baseball is, as Tony Vitello would say, quirky at times. If something doesn't go your way, who's going to step up? And as John said earlier in the show, it's like everybody believes something will happen. We don't know who it's going to be, but everybody thinks that they can have that winning hit. And that's why Tennessee's so good. So just go out there and play your game. America's going to be against you this weekend. But as I said earlier this week, America can't fit in Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Vol fans will be inside Lindsey Nelson Stadium this weekend. Play your game. You'll be fine. Play your game, and you will be fine. And we'll be talking about going to Omaha on Monday's show. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here this week, making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch. Exciting times in terms of Tennessee baseball. We've been talking a lot of baseball here, but they deserve it. They deserve it, and potentially we'll be talking about the Omaha Vols yet again on Monday morning. Follow all my work at VolQuest.com this weekend for everything you guys need to know about Tennessee baseball. Of course, follow me on Twitter @_Caner. Subscribe to us, download us, watch us, listen to us wherever you get your podcast. Absolutely free, okay? We're absolutely free. Tell your friends. Let's continue to grow this show as we build towards football season. Thank you guys so much for being here. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. This has been Locked On Vols.